background is clinical, it's not sales. I got into sales after being a hygienist. Started working with digital imaging in 1996. There's not a product on the market I haven't worked on or trained. So if you have questions about how this compares to other companies, feel free to ask. I'm going to go through, a little bit about the Suni story. Suni's been around for years. A lot of people are not aware of that, and they think it's a fairly new. I need to be louder, or I need to stand.
No, you can talk as loud as you can.
You can
So
stand next to the.
You definitely don't want to say that.
Let me turn up my hearing.
Oh, really? So as you can see, Suni got involved in digital imaging back in 1986. Paul Suni, who was the founder of our company, was involved in building the CCD sensor for the Serac machine. We were involved with building the CCD chips for the Trophy system, which is now Kodak or PracticeWorks or Carestream, your choice. The CCD technology on the Siemens X-rays. David Schick and Paul Suni worked together on the Schick X-ray. We did we did OEM stuff for a number of different companies. The first one being New Image. New Image was the AccuCam company. They wanted to come out with a sensor. They did. We had the first one. They then eventually moved over to what ended up becoming the DEXA sensor. The MPDX was something that was done for media dens. We had the first true Dentrix image sensor, so it's always entertaining to me when the competition says that the Suni sensor is horrible when it's Dentrix, and I can pull out the box that says Dentrix Imagery on it. In 2002 to 2004, we decided to go direct. We were an OEM manufacturer. We did sensors for Lightyear, which was one of the fastest moving digital X-ray systems on the market at that time. We did them for Campsite, which was another one, Sigma Biomedical. A lot of the companies that you're going to come across now that are using Owandi, Himatsu, E2V sensors, were all at one point or another using Suni. When we went direct, our OEM vendors didn't care for that. We did a wonderful job of marketing and branding the Suni product to the point where, with Lightyear, we actually put them out of business. Probably, in hindsight, wasn't one of the smartest things to do because we had two streams of revenue, but hey, it happens. In 2008, we came out with the Suni Ray sensor. In the past, we had a CCD sensor. It was a very high resolution, 3 million megapixel sensor with 21 to 22 line pairs. It was wonderful. CCD was the thing to do at that time. Somewhere around 1999, the other companies started going towards CMOS. Schick was one of the first ones that did it. Trophy did it with a product called Super CMOS, which was a mix between CCD and CMOS. We also went that route. But the advantage that we did is we did not take away our CCD sensors. What happened with our competitors is when they came out with CMOS, they made everybody upgrade to a new sensor and everything they had became obsolete. We made a commitment when we decided to be direct that we would always be backward compliant with our products, which is kind of nice. So there are people out there, I have some doctors that I run into that have had the original Suni sensors, metal ones, since 2002 and they're still using them. Something that's really important to know about Suni, there are two companies that sell digital X-ray that manufacture their own sensors. It's us and it's Schick. Everybody else has somebody else manufacturing them for it. Dexis is made by Fairchild Lockheed. The Kodak sensor is still made by Trophy. E2V is branded by everybody. Hamamatsu is branded by a lot of other companies. Also, everything that we manufacture in the USA. It's all done at Suni headquarters in San Jose. From San Jose, we take care of our service. We build sensors. It's really kind of cool. You go back there and there's all these little people, white coats, that are putting together the little chips. It's really kind of interesting to see. We are not a company that builds our own software. We're a sensor company. We're not a software company. The software we use is Professor Suni software, and basically what it is Aptrix. So if you've ever used Aptrix software with CliniView, with, there's about 50 different names for the software. It's all the same thing. The beauty part about it, and we'll get to that in a minute, just touching on it, is that anything that's on the market will run on this software, which is very cool. Scoot over. Sorry, I'm out of camera range.
Holly, are we going to do questions at the end?
We can do questions whenever you want. I'm really easy. If there's something that comes up now, feel free.
90% of the people in this room have never seen or dealt with digital X-ray.
Okay.
So treat it like that.
That's good to know.
Yeah, we have varying levels of
we'll go
experience.
through that. We can talk a little bit about what digital X-ray does. And basically, all it is, no matter what anyone tells you, it's black film that doesn't bend. It does the same thing as film. You still use an X-ray head. The only thing is that it's reusable. You're using it over and over and over. The biggest advantage of digital X-ray is the radiation reduction, which is somewhere around 50%. They say 90, but that's based on really slow, older film. It's probably about 50%.
That's based on a D-speed film.
I'm sorry?
That's based on a D-speed film.
That's based on old D-speed film, yeah. It'll go down 90% there. I don't even know that you can buy film that slow anymore. It's usually ultra and active speed. So now it's about 50%. FYI, phosphor plate systems, Denoptics, and Scanex are the exact same amount of radiation as you use for film. There's no radiation reduction at all. No worries. Sensors come in a variety of different sizes. Ours come with our Dr. Suni Plus, and you'll get to see the difference between them in 3 sizes: a size 0, a size 1 to 2, which is basically what film comes in. The Suni Ray comes in a size 1 to size 2. Additional advantages with digital X-ray is that you're viewing an image that's this big. I saw you sitting in the corner before. I wish you still had that little film with you, because it just doesn't make sense. I can't even see film anymore. There's enhancement tools. There's things that you just may not be able to see. Gordon Christensen and CRA has done a number of reports on digital X-ray, and the conclusions on all of it is that there is not a sensor on the market that is not diagnostic, and that with the enhancements that are available within the software, it's as good as film. That was this year. That's the first time he's ever said that it's as good as film. Going through this, we take care of our own design and development. Everything is done. We manufacture our own product. We do not manufacture our intraoral camera. It's made for us by Sopro. It is actually the top-rated camera. Yeah, Acteon Sopro. It's the top. That's such a shame about Lauren. It's actually the top-rated camera in the market. The imaging software that we chose, again, was Aptrix. Our sensors last. They do. I run into people all the time that have had them forever. We distribute worldwide, and as far as the best warranty in the industry. To give you an idea of what I mentioned before with Lightyear, Lightyear had sold our sensors as an OEM product with a 5-year warranty. They went out of business after 3 years. We honored every single one of their warranties, and they never paid us for the warranties. When Suni decided to go direct, there were a number of people that were involved. I was one of them. They were all digital X-ray people, and we sat down in the room and said, if we're going to do this, what do we want? What do our customers want more than anything else? The biggest complaint in digital imaging, and you don't need to know anything about sensors to know this, but the biggest complaint is that you spend $10,000 to $15,000 for a digital X-ray system, and then you spend anywhere from $1,500 to $1,800 a year to own it. Dexis is $18, Schick is $1,000, Trophy is $25 a month per sensor, $49 per month for the software. So the ranges are huge. I have an endodontist I work with in Washington, D.C. pays $20,000 in warranties.
Must be an Eagle saw.
Oh no, it's Dexus. He has a number of different practices, and they're $18.95 each.
Is that just,
The charges on you on your staple too.
Yeah.
They sneak the charges.
Oh, I know they do.
I mean, it's like they're locking your power bill.
It's funny that you say that because a lot of
It's a good
times.
sales aid, by the way, you know.
Oh yeah, a lot of times I'll run into that with Kodak, and someone will give me a quote and say that the numbers are the same, and I'm just like, read down to the bottom where it talks about.
There ain't no way those numbers can be the same.
No, what they do is, oh well, it's only whatever, another $75. Yeah, that's a month for the entire time you own it. And since we build everything, the pricing is lower. We take care of service, we take care of training. The warranty is wonderful. When we had customers that wanted to switch from CCD to the CMOS sensor, we upgraded every single one of them at half price with brand new warranties. Didn't charge them for new sensors, and they were able to keep what they had before and run it together. So the reason why we did this is the complaints that we were hearing from our customers with other imaging companies, and we wanted to do what was right for the doctors. As I said, all our older products are still in use. We are completely backward compliant. So if you come across a potential customer that has an older Suni system, I will tell you that in South Florida there are a ton of Lightyear customers that are there for the picking. I do know that for a fact. Lightyear and DMD customers were rampant out here. What they have still works. If they want to add it, they can, and keep using what they're using. The software will still work, everything will still plug in, everything works exactly the same. We're the only company that can make that claim. This is our original USB box. It's a little bit smaller. We have the thinnest sensor on the market with our CCD sensor. There are some huge advantages to having a thin sensor. As far as the consumer is concerned, the end user is concerned, from a hygienist point of view, it doesn't make a difference whether it's thick or thin. It was a great marketing tool. It was the thinnest sensor on the market. It was fast, it was easy, and it was relatively economical. Our sensors are still the smallest on the market with the CCD. However, we sell probably 30% of the CCD sensors, all because of the box. People don't want to use the box anymore. They want it direct, exactly.
So you're saying the box was the collection measure?
Yeah,
And you'd have to
it was actually
transfer it
the
over.
capture board, a giant capture board that was there, and we've actually shrunk that down. You'll see that in a minute. And this is the older Lightyear sensors. You will come across them. They are all over the country. That company did everything via telemarketing. They sold one sensor and a tablet computer for $5,000. These are OEM sensors. The one you're looking at now is actually the original Dentix image sensor, which has since gone away and has become a Dexus sensor. We have an intraoral camera. This was our first one. Light, cheap, easy, great little camera. Unfortunately, it held up fairly well, but dentists don't think that anything less than 30 years is holding up well. So, getting 10 years out of the camera is never long enough. Current sensors, here we go. Dr. Suni Plus, you'll see that we still have a capture board. It plugs from the capture board into a USB on a computer. It has a medical grade connector. Still the thinnest sensor on the market. This sensor comes in a size 0, a size 1, and a size 2. Advantages. From a sales standpoint, it's a megapixel sensor. It's got high line pairs. It takes a good image. Biggest disadvantage is it takes about 12 seconds to come up on the screen. This product sells wonderfully overseas. In the US, we take full mouth series of x-rays. We want something a little more instant. 18 seconds, 15 to 18 seconds may not seem like forever until you have a sensor sitting in your mouth. So that's why less of our business right now is Dr. Suni Plus. There's the 3 sensor sizes.
Are you the only company that makes a zero
Schick
hard
makes
sensor?
one also.
That make a zero?
Schick makes one also. We did not move it over to the Suni Ray
Okay.
just because so few of them are sold. The way our systems have been sold in the past is normally a 2 or 3 sensor system. When I sell a doctor sensor system and it's a 3 sensor system, I usually do 2 2s and a 1. I tell them right up front they're going to use the size 1 about 3% of the time.
The kids.
Yeah. Kids, geriatric patients, people that can't open their mouth that wide.
Tori.
Yeah, mandibular tori.
You're saying that's for one?
Yeah, for the
one.
size 1. They're going to use the size 2 the majority of the time, just like they do with film. The only people I sell zeros to are pedodontists, children's dentists, or Medicaid practices. I see a bunch of those. Questions so far? Am I doing okay?
Those pictures still.
Yes. Let's see how wide we can get your mouth open. The back of the sensor is let's go back one. The back of the sensor is actually triple reinforced with Kevlar. We have found that the weak point of any sensor is at the connector. It's the wire. That's where they break. We just went through the holidays. If you think about Christmas tree lights that you put away last year, everything worked. You check it before you get it done. Next year, you take them out of the box, you plug it in, you go to wrap it around the tree, and one blows out. It's because of the little copper wires that are in them. When everything's straight, they're all touching. If you move it a little bit, even if it's one of those little copper wires in there, you're not going to get a connection. That's what happens with sensors. It causes auto-firing, and what that means is it takes its own x-ray of nothing. It undershoots, doesn't shoot. And again, we found that that was the problem. That's where the issue was, always at the connector. So what we did is we triple reinforced it with Kevlar. Our competition decided to make one that make the sensor that has a removable cord. It's $900 to get the additional cord. We decided it was better for our customers just to fix the problem. So the onboard status tells you what happens when it's green. Means the power's on. When it's red, press the button. 10 to 15 seconds with that sensor, you have an image on the screen.
Is that about average time, 10, 15 seconds?
It's not for CCD. CCD is just really much slower, and it was acceptable in 96 to 2000 before the CMOS came out, because it was the only thing that was out there.
So we're still on the CCD?
We're still all CCD.
Oh, okay.
Haven't even moved on to CMOS yet. The problem with it is when the CMOS and the faster images came out, this was no longer acceptable. This product is a little bit less expensive. It tends to sell, I had one doctor say this to me and I'll never forget it. He has practices in LA and Philadelphia and also for some reason Bulgaria. I don't know. And he told me flat out, he also has an Aston Martin and on one side of the coast and Bentley on the other, and his license plate is Dr. Dream. Yeah. In the U.S., he'll only use the Suni Ray. He told me flat out that he doesn't care what happens in Bulgaria. Nobody's looking for anything there anyhow. So that'll give you an idea of what happens there. People that are looking at the Dr. Suni Plus sensor tends to be a little more cost concerned than they are with other sensors. You have someone that, and it actually even costs a little bit less than the EVO.
Really?
So, by the time the warranty and everything comes into effect, it's pretty substantial. The area of the size 2 sensor is the same size as that film you were looking at before. So when you walk into a dental office and you have a 50-something-year-old hygienist who is fighting tooth and nail against the doctor about buying this because she wants them to buy a ScanX machine, so it's just like film and she can bend it, and this is so much bigger than film. I walk around with a size 2 film in my bag whenever I'm doing a demo in a doctor's office and lay it right on top of it. It ends the whole conversation. Then, of course, it's too thick, but that's a whole other story. And then they'll talk about, well, you can bend film. I said, well, yes. And when we were in hygiene school, if we bend film, we would have failed.
Yeah, if they seen a crease mark on a paperback film,
Exactly.
it jams the processor and it keeps it from mounting right. You read it as an artifact.
Absolutely, it does that, and also it was never meant to be bent open and pop open
No,
in
it
the
wasn't.
patient's
That's
mouth.
when you got the plastic packs, it made it a lot easier because it didn't cut the gingerbread as much. But
If sensors or film, whichever it is, are placed properly,
yeah, it's all.
It doesn't
it's
happen.
all aimed
It doesn't
at-
hurt.
Did you have to learn freehanded in school?
initially, yeah.
Yeah, that's the way I had to learn.
Initially, I do. I personally use snap arrays on the mandibular. The only place I use XTP instruments are on the upper molars. I was always much better at bisecting than I was
Yeah,
paralleling.
bisecting. Remember, I had those big long cones.
Yeah.
for the bisecting technique.
Sensors, 4.2 millimeters thick. It's the thinnest sensor on the market. Keep in mind that is the Dr. Suni Plus, the CCD sensor. The Suni Ray is about 6 millimeters.
And the Dexus is,
Dexus is about 47. It's about 15 millimeters. They talk about, you'll hear a lot of talk about Dexus and the comfort, and it is wonderful because exactly what you were saying with the corners and bending film to make it more comfortable
it's
for the
also
patient.
1.5.
Yeah, they cut off the ends, which is the first thing. There's a couple of things I'll tell you about that sensor. They cut off all the corners, so they sort of have like an octagon-shaped sensor, but a little bit longer. It is very, very, very thick. It's more comfortable as far as digging is concerned, for want of another description, but if you have a gagger, it's a nightmare. We don't use a fiber optic plate in the Dr. Suni Plus sensor. There's no need for it because of the megapixel in there. It also does not make it as fragile as the fiber optic plates are. That's not to say if you continue to hit these things on the floor that they're going to work. They're not. But if it happens, which it will happen, from occasion, it'll still work. You were asking before about line pairs. They used to come in a bunch of different resolutions. We don't make the standard resolution on anything but the size 0 anymore. There's really no reason for a high resolution sensor on kids. They're not going to have anything that's that difficult to see. So that is a 22 line pair machine. Human eye does 15, film does 14. So it's all somewhat irrelevant. There are buzzwords in the industry. Line pairs is definitely one of them.
Grayscale.
Yeah, grayscale. And at this point, they're all 4096 grayscale. A lot of it talks about line pairs. I normally, because I am a Jersey girl, normally if a doctor says to me, how many line pairs is it, would you be able to tell? Can you see everything you need to see? And then I'll tell them, tell me what you see on this x-ray. But it is a buzzword. None of them have any idea what it really means. It's just another way for them to bring up a point. Questions so far? Are we okay? Oh, and the film at 14 line pairs is presuming that it was shot at the right exposure, that it was processed properly, that the chemicals were at the exact correct temperature. Otherwise, it goes down even lower.
But you said the human eye can only read.
15 to 16, exactly. But we need to be 20. But it became this issue about line pairs per millimeter.
But when you blow it up on a screen.
When you blow it up, if you blow it up on a screen, it depends upon the sensor. It has less to do with the sensor and more to do with the software. Schick, for example, has a 21 millimeter line pair as well. 22 line pairs per millimeter, I'm sorry. If you zoom in on it, because their zooming software is awful, it pixelates like crazy. It has nothing to do with the sensor itself, it just has to do with the software. If you zoom in on it, your eye will probably be able to maybe bump it up to 17. You'll notice the way this is done. The sensors are built on the bottom. They're all taped in. It's not straight. See how they're folded over? That goes more towards the reinforcement we were talking about before. So in order to pull that sensor off the wire, there's a lot more going on there. Again, we understood there was a problem with the connectors. We did everything we could to change it. Sometimes I wish we would have done the check then. Be nice to sell a $900 wire, wouldn't it?
Do you want more?
You can see that it absorbs, as we were talking about, it absorbs the strain. Everything is there. It's meant to hold together.
That's just shooting the back of the sensor.
Yeah, we just flipped it over. That's all it is. Thank you for noticing. Okay, now we're moving on to Suni Ray, CCD. You'll notice we still have, CMOS, I'm sorry. You'll notice we still have a capture box. It's just smaller. It's basically the size of a ladyfinger cookie. It connects. I'm going to talk food. It connects via USB into the computer. The reason why it's not all one piece is because if, God forbid, the thing goes flying. If you've ever been in an office where they're taking digital x-rays, it's always fun to see someone trip over the sensor. It happens all the time. This is meant to disconnect at the $35 port. It'll come right off, no damage to the sensor. So it was made that way for a reason. Again, we're back to the whole red-green. Green is ready. Red is shooting. That sensor is 6 millimeters thick. It comes in a size 2 and a size 1. No size 0 in Suni Ray.
How long is the port from the sensor to
It can,
the
from the sensor to the
box?
USB is 12 feet, and then you can go up to another 15 after that. They also can be done in 8 feet. And there it is. You can see the little cable here. Again, $35 ferrite USB cable. I don't care if those things break all day long. I don't want anything happening to the $7,000 sensor. So the corners are rounded. That was always the problem. We had the thinnest sensor on the market. It was metal. It's really thin. It dug like crazy. So we rounded the ends. We reinforced the cable. We made the casing harder. We're using CMOS. Where it says CMOS is superior images, that doesn't mean anything to anybody. Basically what happens with the CMOS sensor is you get a much higher contrast image. So you and I, who use D-speed film, are used to seeing real blacks and real whites. And seeing incipient, which is decay that's not quite into the enamel, or into the enamel but not into the dentin, has always been difficult to see with CCD sensors.
Yeah, because of the white to white.
Right.
That was one of the early complaints doctors had against going.
Absolutely.
They couldn't read the contrast.
Right, so they had to mess with the contrast, they had to invert it, there were all sorts of tools that had to be done. That is why the CCD sensors go to Bulgaria and the CMOS sensors stay here. There's a one-touch enhancement, which was really nice with some of the other products. Kodak had a one-button enhancement, and it depended upon what you were looking at. If you were looking at an endo image, you had one button you pressed. If you were looking at a perio or a bone problem, clicked on the perio on. If you were looking for decay, there was a DJ button. That was one of the things that was lacking in our software. We recently had that added, and it makes all the difference in the world. The enhancement takes care of the contrast as well as the sharpness, and it really makes things jump out, and I'm so hoping I can get that running so I can show you what it does. The emergency cable disconnect, that's what I was talking about, that $40 cable. I don't care what happens to it. In the past, with the CCD sensors, when you plugged them into the computer, you had to run a separate file so that it knew which sensor it was. Each sensor had its own unique number, CCD file. It doesn't have to do that anymore. It now reads it automatically with the CMOS sensors. And the feedback monitoring indicator lights just means it's red when it's on, green when it's on, red when it's shooting. Although the images, there's much more contrast, you'll see on the Suni Ray. as opposed to a high-resolution CCD. The CCD sensor